Okay, let's dive right into this one. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at what happens when you take a massive challenge and turn it into an absolutely fascinating social experiment. We're talking about that famous scenario where 33 strangers were locked inside a fully stocked grocery store. The prize? A staggering $250,000 for the absolute last person to walk out those doors. But you know, what started out as a simple test of endurance pretty much instantly morphed into this profound real-time study of human behavior, how we build societies, and ultimately, how they collapse.
So really think about this for a second. What actually happens when you take everyday shoppers, just regular people with jobs, families, totally normal lives, and drop them into a highly pressurized, completely closed-off environment? Well, they kind of become accidental test subjects, and we get a front row seat to watch day by day as civilized, modern individuals try to navigate having limited space, incredibly high stakes, and worst of all, each other.
In this explainer, we're going to break this whole microsociety down into 5 distinct stages. We've got forming the grocery tribes, scarcity and store economies, sabotage and psychological warfare, collusion in the top 10, and to wrap it up, the toll of isolation.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, forming the grocery tribes, from shoppers to factions.
It is literally mind-blowing to watch just how fast modern humans revert right back to tribalism. I mean, on day 1, the whole idea of just being an individual shopper completely vanished. Instead, the store's physical layout dictated these new micro-societies. You had the Freezy Boys locking down the meat section by the freezers. They completely barricaded themselves in, but they were still open to bartering. Over in the produce aisle, the innovators set up camp. They were a highly collaborative group that actually went out of their way to protect a pregnant member. Then there was the Dream Team claiming the milk aisle, deeply sharing their resources and even pushing together makeshift beds. Oh, and you can't forget the highly isolated faction that just completely took over the manager's office and walled themselves off from everyone else.
What we're seeing here is a textbook, brilliant illustration of in-group favoritism. That's basically the psychological tendency to give preferential treatment to people who are in your specific group. From the jump, survival completely depended on joining a team. Whether it was a father-son duo just looking out for each other, or the Freezy Boys basically pledging lifelong loyalty to one another on night 1, these participants realized pretty fast that being alone meant being vulnerable. By teaming up, they got security, they staked claims on resources, and honestly, they built a much-needed psychological safety net.
Moving on to Section 2, scarcity and store economies, surviving the aisles. Now, safety nets are great, but they only go so far when you start running out of stuff. You might assume a massive grocery store has an endless supply of everything, right? Well, there was a huge catch. Right before the doors locked for this experiment, the store threw a massive 50% off sale. Real shoppers came in and practically wiped the place clean. So the contestants were hit with immediate, totally unexpected scarcity, especially for non-food basics. Like, there were absolutely 0 phone chargers left. Think about that. Once your phone died, that was it. You were instantly and completely severed from the outside world.
Because of this, it's absolutely crucial to look at how these tribes adapted economically just to survive. People were sleeping directly on cold metal shelving or using those giant bulk napkin dispensers as makeshift pillows. But, they also got super creative. They engineered fully functioning hot showers using utility hoses, and they even built actual workout gyms complete with bench presses made out of heavy store inventory. They basically had to build an entire internal economy and infrastructure from scratch just to keep themselves sane.
Which brings us to Section 3, sabotage and psychological warfare, the social collapse.
Because let's be real, sanity is incredibly fragile. Once the boredom hits and the massive weight of that prize money really sets in, things took a dark turn. We go from peaceful fort building right into active social collapse. And if you look at the timeline, the escalation is just breathless. Day 1, everybody is building forts and making friends. By day 3, we've got the gyms and showers running. But by night 5, the entire community completely shatters with what we're going to call the floaty riot.
And the catalyst for this pure, unadulterated anarchy? It was shockingly simple. One of the contestants, this guy Xavian, launched a totally unprovoked attack on a pool floaty that the Dream Team was using as a bed. Someone saw it happen, immediately ran and told the group, and things just blew up. Confrontations escalated wildly. People started retaliating by destroying food, literally stomping on Pop-Tarts at Xavian's base, and that initial vibe of peace, it was fractured forever.
What we are really watching play out here is a total clash of survival strategies. On one side, you've got the community alliance strategy. This is where the Dream Team and the Freezy Boys realized they needed to merge into this giant supergroup just for mutual protection. But on the other side,
the lone wolf saboteur strategy. Xavian basically leaned all the way into being the villain, using organized chaos to actively weaken those big alliances. Let's actually break down just how calculated this sabotage was. So the store only had one basketball. It was literally their only source of entertainment. Xavian's master plan? Step 1, steal and hide the basketball. Step 2, frame another competitor named Robbie by stashing it in his dumpster. Step 3, just sit back and watch paranoia completely rot the group's morale. Now, another contestant did accidentally catch him in the act, which caused a whole different kind of drama, but his psychological goal? Totally achieved. Trust was obliterated, and the alliances started turning inward on themselves.
And that leads us right into Section 4, Collusion in the Top 10, the burner heist.
This total breakdown of trust opens the door for the absolute most ruthless tactics of the entire experiment. As people quit and the numbers dwindled, that unified super alliance between the Dream Team and the Freezy Boys realized they had all the power. Since pretty much all the decent food left required cooking, they hatched a plot to completely monopolize the store's hot plates. Their own quote really says it all. So, what if we took their burners? We gotta pin it on Zay.
Okay, so let's walk through the step-by-step execution of this wild in-group collusion. First, they organized a fake top 10 celebratory ceremony in the walk-in freezer, basically a ruse to get everyone off the main sales floor. Second, they made sure Xavian was interviewed first so he'd be the first one to walk back out into the empty store alone. Third, while everyone was distracted, a Super Alliance member named Colin literally snuck out of the shower and stole all the hot burners. Finally, they all just played dumb and let the rest of the store assume that Xavian, the resident saboteur, had struck again.
But as always, the plan hit a snag. They managed to miss a single burner belonging to a contestant named Juan. And when Juan basically said, "No, I'm not sharing my one surviving burner with the giant alliance that just robbed everybody," the fallout was catastrophic. The Super Alliance literally issued a no hot meals ultimatum to the store. They hoarded a secret stash of food for themselves, and then, I kid you not, started chucking the entire community food supply out the front doors. They even went as far as physically smashing Juan's pots and pans so he couldn't cook at all. At this point, the in-group was just actively, aggressively punishing the out-group.
Which brings us to our final stage, Section 5, the toll of isolation, breaking the human spirit.
See, starving people out of physical resources is one thing, but the ultimate weapon in this store was emotional attrition and sleep deprivation. It turned into this endless cycle of noise warfare. Picture this. At 3 or 4 in the morning, the guys isolated in the manager's office would just violently bang pots and pans, loudly announcing they were trying to force people to quit. Then in retaliation, one, who somehow managed to sleep through the nighttime chaos, would wake up at 6 a.m. loudly singing and making a racket to punish everyone else. The result was this extreme, torturous lack of sleep that literally drove exhausted contestants, like Tino, straight out the front door.
But it wasn't just sleep they were missing. It was time. As days dragged into weeks, the real emotional breaking point for so many wasn't the noise or the paranoia or the terrible food. It was the isolation from their families. You really feel it when contestant Robbie finally walks away from the money, saying, "I'm not going to be in here for 3 months and miss my kid's life."
Right as that emotional and physical exhaustion was peaking, a brand new variable dropped, a $5,000 buyout bribe for anyone willing to quit right then and there. And honestly, this sudden flash of guaranteed cash was the final wedge. It successfully fractured even the tightest remaining alliances, causing multiple people to just instantly fold and walk away.
So by the end of our timeline, the store had devolved into complete and total anarchy. What was left was a micro-society of sleep-deprived, deeply isolated, paranoid individuals who had essentially trashed their own environment and food supply purely out of spite. Even Xavian, the guy who started all the chaos, eventually hit his absolute breaking point and had to leave amid all the relentless noise and destruction.
And that brings us to the core takeaway of this entire explainer. What this experiment so brilliantly and kind of terrifyingly proves is that under the right mix of pressure and scarcity, our civilized rules are incredibly fragile. It only took a matter of days for everyday shoppers to completely dissolve into tribal warfare, using psychological torture, extreme resource hoarding, and vicious sabotage against their peers. So I want to leave you with a pretty fascinating question to chew on. We all like to sit back and think we'd be the ones building the community, sharing the food, keeping the peace. But in a locked room where survival is a zero-sum game, how quickly would you turn on your neighbor for a hot meal and $250,000? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the world around you, and I'll catch you next time.